I was 13, and it was a pretty exciting time in my life because I went blind when I was 12. So I was pretty new at figuring out what was going to go on with me and how I was going to do my thing, whatever the thing was I was going to do. And the key factor at that particular point was that I was very confused as a kid because I was able to see until I was 12 and then I couldn't see. So I had this very interesting dynamic going on in my life. And no one told me I wasn't going to see ever again, but that's another whole story. But I was born of an Italian father, Catholic, and a Jewish mother. And they battled all the time over how I was going to be raised. And I remember these talks that they used to have. And they solved it by raising me both. So I went to Catholic training for confirmation. I received communion, and then I was going to receive confirmation. And then I also went to Hebrew school and had to learn how to do all the reading backwards without seeing. I actually had a Braille book to use, and it was actually written backwards. I couldn't read Braille forward, so I was really having a hard time. And I would try to read out loud, as the teachers wanted me to do, and I was speaking something like Chinese is the way it came out, because I was all confused looking at the letters and trying to make them work from right to left. All that being said, my parents came to a lot of confirmation and bar and bat mitzvahs with me, because it was families being invited, not just me. I wasn't friends with any kids per se that I got to go alone. So I went with my parents. And we went to some events. I'm from a small town called Brooklyn, and people compete on everything. What kind of car you have, what kind of house you have, what kind of clothes you wear. Everything is a competition. I didn't really fit into that as well. I mean, people say I'm very competitive, and I get it from my parents. I actually figured out late in life that I'm not as competitive as you think. I'm actually more trying to be the best I can be. It has an appearance of competition, but it's really not. So we would go to these parties, and they were ostentatious, would be the word I would use. I mean, chocolate fountains and, you know what? I can't even recite to you all of the glitz and glory that was at these parties, but they were all designed to be better than the last party. And I recall parents of my friends throwing a bar mitzvah, but they went to Joel's bar mitzvah last week and they saw X, Y, and Z, and they changed the bar mitzvah in a week because they had to do better. And they were like, oh my God, we have to do something better than that, blah, 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 blah. And it was always very stressful to listen to, because how are you going to do this? Well, what I didn't acknowledge or pay attention to in any way was that my parents were trying to figure out how they were going to do it. Do what, you ask? How they were going to do better than all these other parties. We never had that kind of money. So I knew we couldn't do it in any way in the competitive spirit the parents were all in. So my parents came up with this brilliant idea, because I was complaining that I had to do my confirmation in May and my bar mitzvah in September. And I had to do them both, and I had to study, and I realized after the fact that the Catholics have it really easy. You don't have to say anything but a prayer, and someone puts a on your forehead, and away you go. Like, wow, that was really easy. Guess what? The bar mitzvah, not so easy. It was much more challenging. So I spent that whole summer practicing and learning. My parents came up with this really brilliant idea. I was going to top everybody, or rather, they were going to top everybody, because I had two parties. I had a confirmation and a bar mitzvah. I did them both. We had a big party in May and a whole different cast of people for the September event. Only overlaps were family members, and they thought this was going to be the best thing in the world. Well, let me tell you, we did have the tops over everybody else. At both events, more than a dozen kids got drunk. And I guess my way of coping was I was one of them. Both parties. I thought my party was grand. It was because I was drinking Gordon's gin at one party, and after that party, I couldn't drink that again. And then at another party, I was drinking the dreaded Grand Marnier. I can't even smell that stuff anymore. But they thought the parties were hugely successful, except for the kids that got drunk, or the part about the kids that got drunk. And my parents dealt with it to the best of their ability, apologized and whatever, but they went home after those parties thinking they topped everybody. And I didn't feel that way. We didn't do our best letting kids drink. There was never kids drinking any of the other parties that I knew about. And we were living in a bubble. We were kind of lying to ourselves, thinking we did so great. And I knew we didn't do so great when the father of one of the kids came to my father's house. It wasn't mine. I lived there. And basically called my father out in the street and wanted to beat him up. And in those days where I lived, that's what you did. And then you were friends after that. You got rid of it and you just beat each other up. And that, again, I wasn't really accustomed to that happening with like my friends' parents. I saw it in family. Isn't that great? Now I have no family. Does that tell you anything? But the bottom line is, just thinking you have two parties is not the answer to topping everybody else's event. In fact, the truth is you want to be the best that you could be and not make it such a competition. And I thought I did well in both events. I read in Hebrew. I did it sounding Jewish, not Chinese. And I got acclaimed thoughts and comments from people for how well I did in studying both Catholicism and Judaism. And my parents thought that they did the best thing in the world because I got envelopes from both parties. And I never saw that money, so you know what happened there. In fact, I studied Catholicism and Judaism until I was 13, and now I respect both and practice neither. Thank you.